You're a growing business, which means you need every spare hour you can find. That's why the most successful growing businesses are working together in Slack. Slack is where work happens, with all your people, data, and information in one AI-powered place. Start a call instantly in huddles and ditch cumbersome calendar invites. Or build an automation with Workflow Builder to take routine tasks off your plate. No coding required. Grow your business in Slack. Visit slack.com to get started.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Brakes? We can save you 15% on that. We have OE quality Duralast brake pads and rotors in stock, ready for pickup or delivery. We also have calipers, brake fluid, tools, and anything else you'll need to do the job right. When you get Duralast pads and rotors together, you'll save 15%. It's just part of what makes us America's #1 brakes destination.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Real quick, Shane Bowen defense. We saw it in Tennessee, obviously. What at the end of the day do you want the Shane Bowen New York Giants defense? When people say that, what are they going to see on the field?
Yeah, I hope they see us flying around, playing with speed, playing with great effort. I think of physicality to our game, playing with violence, attacking the line of scrimmage, guys being fundamentally sound, not beating ourselves, making sure we're lined up, we're communicating, doing everything pre-snap that we need to do to put ourselves in position to make plays. But ultimately, if guys fly around and we play physical, I feel like that makes up for a lot of stuff.
Have you got what's your sense of familiarity with this roster right now? Obviously, it's day one with the players. I mean, how much work do you have to do to figure out these guys?
Yeah, the spring's going to be huge for that. Just talking to them this morning, I mean, it's a clean slate for a lot of guys. Everybody's going to get opportunities. We're going to do some different things, put people in some different places than they might have been at times. I'm familiar. I've watched all the film from last season, so I have an idea. Strengths, weaknesses, areas I think we need to improve. Players need to improve specifically. But that will kind of continue throughout the spring.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tom Canavan.
Hey, Shane, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very good. When you come in and take over as coordinator, how much of what you do is, this is my defense, look compared to these guys do this well, I don't want to change them?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Ultimately, as a coach, in my opinion, you got to put the players you have in the best situations for them to be successful, right? So we have our scheme, our systematic thinking of what we want to do defensively, but at the same time, we got to be able to adjust. I think great coaching staffs always do. You got to be able to adjust to who you have. So you're putting those guys in positions that are favorable to them and not putting them in positions that they might struggle in.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dan Duggan.
Hey, Shane, just to sort of piggyback on that, they ran a pretty unique scheme here the last couple of years. So for returning players, how much of an adjustment do you think it will be to transition into what you're going to run?
Yeah, I think, there's some similarities. There are. Obviously, Wink took over for Dean in Baltimore. I took over for Dean in Tennessee. So there's some terminology aspects that are going to be similar. You guys know the stats just in terms of blitz rate, what it was here compared to what we were in Tennessee. But ultimately, we're going to do what we need to do to win. I think the biggest thing for me right now is getting a good handle on these guys and introducing from the ground level all the way up through, making sure we're understanding the style of play we want to play with first and foremost. And then as we get into X's and O's and kind of evolve and I get a better feel for these guys, that will kind of take on a life of its own as we go.
And then just kind of for my purposes, in the past we kind of knew sort of what the prototypes were for certain positions. Just curious at cornerback, what are you looking for? What are the traits, size, measurables that you're looking for at that position? Yeah,
I want guys that can defend the deep part of the field, guys that can play man coverage, and guys that are willing to tackle. Obviously, measurables are great, but if they're able to get their job done with being a little bit less at some of those measurables, then I'm okay with that. But those are the big three for me.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Peter Splendorio.
Hi, Shane. Peter Splendorio with the Daily News.
Hey.
First of all, just what was kind of your reaction to the Brian Burns trade and kind of the processes that played out?
Yeah, I'm excited to have him here. I am just getting him in the building today. Obviously, he's had success in this league. He's been an impact player in this league. So I'm excited to get him here, and we'll work kind of throughout the spring and see where he's at. And just like all these other guys, we got things for him that he can improve on and things he's got to continue to do at a high level. But really excited to add him.
And kind of to that point, just how much do you expect the front, like the defensive line and the front seven, to be a strength, and how important is that given, I guess, kind of the history of this franchise?
Yeah, I hope it's a big strength for us. I mean, we got guys up there, we got resources up there, and those guys, I'm expecting big things from them, and we're going to demand big things from them. So hopefully they can play off each other. I think they complement each other really well in terms of what they do well, in terms of rush coordination and things that come into play with that. But I'm going to have high standards for that group.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ryan Dunleavy.
Hey, Shane, thanks for doing this.
Yep, no problem.
I can't really ignore the elephant in the room that it didn't end well here for your predecessor. What kind of work did you do, investigation did you do into that, into how you would be able to get along with Brian Daboll? Obviously, I don't think you've worked with him, but Vrabel has, right? And you probably have a lot of similar connections. What kind of research did you do before taking this job?
Yeah, I mean, I met with Dave's throughout the interview process and got a feel for who he was. And obviously everybody's pretty connected throughout this league, so you have an idea. And everything's been great. It's been really, really encouraging being here these past 2 months, working with him, and I'm excited for where this thing's going to go here in the future.
And then obviously you kept a lot of the former assistants, position coaches, I should say. What went into that? Because obviously, like a lot of defensive coordinators want to pick their whole staff. Why were you okay with, keeping some of the guys that were already here? Did you interview them, or was that kind of a understood process in taking the job?
Yeah, I think all the guys that were retained, really good coaches. I think they're really great at connecting with their players. They've had those relationships, and that's such a big piece in coaching. Probably the most important piece in coaching is the relationship side of this business. I always say these players don't care what you know until they know how much you care, right? So I think that was a big part of it for me, is just their familiarity, their relationships already in place with these players. Got a great feel for all those guys. What we're trying to do, I feel like they're in line with, they're in sync. They got great ideas. So I'm really happy we were able to retain them. And I think it's going to be a benefit for me, not only early on getting a feel for these players and how things operate and how they operate from a day-to-day basis, but also moving forward really with all these relationships.
Thanks, Shane.
Yep.
Kim Jones.
Hi, Shane. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. Great. Thank you. What's it like to inherit a player like a Dexter Lawrence?
It's good. It's good. I'm excited. I'm excited to coach him. I am. He's a proven player in this league. I think the thing is just the continued leadership that comes with his success. Continue to push the envelope in terms of that. But in terms of the play, what he brings out there on Sunday, from what I understand, what he brings day in and day out here, I'm excited to have the opportunity to coach him and what he can bring to our defense.
Will your players have to unlearn some of what they spent the last seasons doing under Wink because of the different concepts?
I don't know if I would say unlearn. I think they'll take some of that, what they've learned. The biggest thing really to me is probably terminology, right? Everybody does a lot of the same stuff, has a lot of the same scheme and system in their systems. It's really just a terminology, and even me learning as I've kind of progressed through. It's how can I relate to what we're calling this now to what we called it before, right? So more or less, I think it's more so that because playing football is playing football. The technique, the fundamentals, all of that's going to be pretty similar, I think, throughout schemes, but mainly the terminology.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Tom Rock.
Shane, I'm wondering how you go about coaching the new hip drop tackle rules. You know, obviously you're not going to be able to do it live too much in practices and things like that. How do you attack that change?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the process of studying it now. I think just bringing awareness to it, understand that the biggest thing for me is the situations guys find themselves in when they occur, right? Like if we have a good understanding of that, I think that will lead to hopefully us being able to avoid it. I don't know if it's going to be 100% avoidable at times. I hope it is, but at times you're going to be caught in some situations and those guys are thinking do whatever they can to get the guy down on the ground, and it might happen. But right now we're studying them. We're trying to make cut-ups of them where we can show these guys just so they have a good understanding of, in this situation, when you're in this body position with the ball carrier, these are when these things are showing up. And then we got to be able to teach from that so where we can eliminate getting ourselves in those situations.
And then if I could follow up in a different angle, Isaiah Simmons is a guy that you guys brought back, didn't have to, right? So obviously you have some kind of a vision for him. What is that vision? Where do you see him fitting in your scheme? Yeah,
I'm excited he decided to come back. I'm excited we were able to get him back here. He's a unique skill set, and I think it's a fine line for coaches. You see all the different, I guess, things he's able to do that you can't overload him. And we're going to have to work through this spring. And right now I couldn't give you a definite answer. I really couldn't. I think some of that's going to depend on some of these other positions and how things play out. But he's played outside. He's played deep. He's played inside. I think the versatility to play man coverage is a big asset, the versatility to blitz. So we're going to work through that this spring and hopefully get him in a spot he feels most comfortable where he can be most productive for us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jordan Renan.
Hey, Shane. How you doing? Welcome.
Great. Thank you.
I'm curious, when you went through the evaluation of what is on the roster, what stood out to you?
Yeah, I think obviously now I think the front, probably the main thing that stood out to me throughout was the depth. I think we have really good depth here. I think there's a bunch of guys that have played a lot of football here. I'm looking forward to seeing some of those guys compete for possibly a bigger role here this spring as we kind of get through practice and get into OTAs. But that would probably be the biggest thing. I think we got good players at all levels. I think we have impact players at all levels. So I'm very encouraged with what we have right now.
And I think when people, say, okay, what's Shane Bowen's defense? A lot of people are like, well, that was Vrabel's defense, because I'm sure as a head coach, he probably had some input. How different do you envision your defense being, without Vrabel here, without his input? Obviously, I'm sure you'll bring a lot of same things, but will it look different and how much?
Yeah, I think we're kind of working through that right now as a staff, just what we want it to look like. We have an idea. There's going to be some things in tennis that we did in Tennessee over the years that I feel strongly in, schematically wise, and then just really getting a feel for these players as we go with what my comfort level with what they're able to handle, how much we're putting on them. The last thing I want to do is have so much scheme we can't focus on our style of play, the technique, the fundamentals, and paralyzing ourselves before the snap. I want to make sure that when that center has his hand on the ball, we're lined up, we got our cleats in the ground, and we're ready to roll and attack and play ball, and we're not overthinking out there.
We'll take three more. Patty Traina.
Hi, Shane. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Shane, I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about Kayvon Thibodeau. I know, you haven't really started working with him yet. I'm sure you studied him on tape. What did you see from him, and what do you think his ceiling is?
Yeah, he had a productive year last year. We're our goal is to build on last season. I think the addition of Burns, having those guys be able to compete day in and day out is going to be big for him. With any young player, and I know he's a little bit further along, but with any of these guys that are still kind of figuring it out, is just this time of year is huge for them. The development, the technique, the fundamentals, like we're going to drive that home to them, and hopefully we can continue to get that same level of production, and with some more technique fundamentals that we're going to be coaching, we can get a little more out of them. But again, we'll see. We'll see how the spring goes. We'll see where we're at come training camp, and then obviously once the season gets going, where things are. But I'm excited to have him here. I think he's a talented player who hopefully he's going to be an impact player for us.
And then if I could just follow up on the pass rush concept here, there's obviously different ways you can generate a pass rush. What's your philosophy as far as, do you like to do it from the front seven? Do you like to throw in exotic blitzes? Do you do a little bit of everything?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if you go back and look at my time in Tennessee, it's been a lot of front pressure, right? Like the front four, being coordinated with their rush lanes, working together, finding ways to affect the quarterback, and then being able to use that to be multiple in the back end, right? Where you're not delegating a piece up front. But we've done the gamut. We've brought 4, we brought 5, we brought 6. We've done some of the zone pressure stuff, overload stuff. So we have it all. I think as we get a feel here into training camp, and we feel really based on how we're feeling with the front and some of these other guys, how they can impact as rushers from the second level, all that stuff comes into play. And really ultimately you're talking about how you want to delegate resources, right? Are you delegating them for the rush, or are you trying to delegate them for the back end? And some of that comes into play, how good you are in the back end with less, or how good you are rushing the quarterback with a little bit less. So that will evolve as we go, but my history has been, we got 4 guys that can rush. We're going to let them go rush.
Thank you.
Ed Valentine.
Hey, Coach. Thank you for a few minutes. Obviously, you're going to be teaching something that's a little bit different than what these guys have learned in the past. How do you have to be aware of that, and how do you go about building trust with these guys and building buy-in into what you're trying to teach?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the approach is a little bit different. I don't think in terms of the teaching and the schematics, there's going to be a whole lot of difference. I think the approach day to day, week to week, in terms of our game plan, that might change a little bit, but I don't think going back to the previous question, I don't think they're really going to have to unlearn anything. I think it's just going to be what we're emphasizing a little bit more. These guys understanding their piece in the defense, how it all works together, understanding concepts, being able to tie them in so we can do different things that are similar in a lot of ways, but there might be 1 or 2 variations here or there. But the focus right now is on style of play, on fundamentals, and as we get to scheme and we get going in that direction, I think they'll be able to pull a lot from what they've done in the past. And then if there's some new things here or there, we'll teach them, right? We'll teach them. But ultimately for me, I think it's more of a general approach from my standpoint than anything.
Thank you.
Last one, Art Stapleton.
Hey Shane, you mentioned earlier the blitz percentages. We all know them. We all know what the Giants did last year. But philosophically, it's almost like people want to use those percentages and then look at yours and say, well, we know Bowen's not going to blitz at all. I've talked to people down in Tennessee and said that's not true. What do you say to the idea that you like to play passively on the back end and you're not going to bring guys on the blitz?
Yeah, I'm going to do whatever we got to do to affect the quarterback and make sure the ball don't get thrown over our head. So whatever that is, however many guys we got to send, however I guess less guys you can send and still get the same result, I think all that comes into play. And it takes all 11. It does. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're bringing more to affect the quarterback, you got less back there to help, right? If you have more back there to help in coverage, you got less going to affect the quarterback. So it takes all 11. It all ties together, the rush, the coverage. However you want to piece it together, I think depends a little bit on personnel, how you're able to affect with less, how you're able to affect with more versus how you're able to hold up in the back end. So it's going to be fluid. Like, we've done it all. We really have. The percentages might not show up, but you go back and find the ones that we did. It's probably going to look a lot similar to what it was here, a little bit more on a higher percentage than what we did in Tennessee.
You're a growing business, which means you need every spare hour you can find. That's why the most successful growing businesses are working together in Slack. Slack is where work happens, with all your people, data, and information in one AI-powered place. Start a call instantly in huddles and ditch cumbersome calendar invites. Or build an automation with Workflow Builder to take routine tasks off your plate. No coding required. Grow your business in Slack. Visit slack.com to get started.
You never want to find yourself out on the water fishing without the essentials. So it's best to always pack a Columbia PFG Solar Stream Elite hoodie to protect against the sun. I mean, it provides great protection, and it's really breathable so you don't get hot. That's a win-win. Columbia PFG has a lot of great gear, so before you head out on the water, head over to Columbia.com/PFG to shop their performance fishing gear.